Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing fantastic out there tonight and had yourselves a great Wednesday. And I hope you all have been having a great week out there so far. I appreciate y'all folks tuning in this evening. We got you a long video. We're going to speak on many things. We're going to talk about the severe weather threats. We're going to talk about a storm system that's going to enter the Pacific Northwest overnight into tomorrow morning, give you some details on that. Talk about another storm system for this weekend across the southeast. It's going to bring even more beneficial rains, but for a lot of folks that has any kind of outdoor activities planned for this weekend across the south, man, it could potentially be a washout for you folks. So we'll get detailed on that. And then we will speak on the potential. I'm going to use the word potential a lot. You know how I do here. For a storm system next week, potentially for the Northeast. Now, we don't want to hype this up too early on, but there is some model guidance being thrown out there that's showing the potential for a snow event for the Northeast, and not kind of a lake effect snow event, but the potential for a coastal system. So we were going to talk about that. Talk about what we do know. Nothing's a forecast, but as you guys know, we're going to speak on this, and as we get closer, we will fine-tune things just like how we always do in this channel. But we're going to get very detailed on the severe weather threat, just like we always do when we kind of know something is going to happen, right? And I think it's important to talk about what's driving these things, so we'll do that for you folks. But the video will be sectioned off. Just give me about 5 to 10 minutes after I drop it, and I will put timestamps in it. So if you folks have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button for me. Like the video if you like it. Appreciate the thoughts and prayers with being sick. I feel much better today, but I'm just still low on energy. And I will probably take multiple sips of water during this video just to make sure that I don't lose my voice or get hoarse or anything like that. But if you guys got anything I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. And I'll be sure to pray over them, and I promise you others will do so too. So, this is what we got going on right now. It's pretty quiet out there. There's not a whole lot going on. It's a very quiet lower 48 weather-wise as far as what's happening this evening. We still have some lingering snow up here in Canada that's kind of drifting into the interior sections of the Northeast, but it's not really a big deal at all. Everybody else, guys, I mean, there's nothing to really speak on. You're starting to see the moisture creep into southern areas of Texas. This will eventually overnight overspread the eastern sections of Texas, eventually getting all the way into Oklahoma, Arkansas, and western Louisiana. And then we will have widespread activity pretty much all day tomorrow in these areas, and a lot of heavy rain could fall, and then the potential for severe weather. By the time we are waking up tomorrow morning, the radar will look a lot more full up here in the Pacific Northwest as a system is going to move in and dump a lot of higher elevation snow but lower elevation rain. But guys, there's not a whole lot to speak on right now, but let's talk about the water vapor loop. So I just noticed I don't have my clicker up, so that kind of stinks, but we'll try to muscle our way through this regardless. But if you look down here, there's kind of a dip and the different shaded colors. So that is our upper trough digging down right into here. And if you notice in the wider colors right into here, that is moisture basically getting pulled out the south into areas of the south central U.S. because this upper trough is basically digging down, creating winds out the southwest in general. And this is basically going to aid in the development of a warm sector, just a sector of warm, moist air, which will be one of the ingredients for severe weather for tomorrow. But as far as everything else, you can't really see what's going on well, but you can see this upper trough digging down pretty well, and this piece of energy, basically a surface low, is going to develop at the base of this trough, which is typical of any kind of severe weather threat, and then the low pressure is going to eject across the middle of the country. But that's what's going on based off water vapor loop. As far as watches, warnings, advisories, I mean, the severe weather threat isn't ongoing right now, but the reason I am showing you this is because some of these watches, advisories are driven off what we are going to talk about in this video, which is up here in the Pacific Northwest. We have winter storm watches. Even where confidence is the highest, we already have winter storm warnings out for these higher elevations of the Cascades here in Washington State. But I mean, this is going to be a pretty big snow event for areas of northern Nevada. I think someone says y'all pronounce it Nevada out there, not Nevada, or the other way around. I'm not quite sure, but either way, Nevada, yeah. But you got winter storm watches up in Idaho, some winter weather advisories also, and then widespread winter weather advisories here in Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, where we will get some snow in these areas. Then we have some wind advisories up too, where this low pressure is going to dig down, eject, and we will have a lot of winds aloft, but this will also mix the surface, creating some windy conditions, which is typical with a low pressure ejecting across the middle of the country. Freeze warning still affect, another cold night across the southeast. We really won't speak on the temperatures in this video for tonight, but expect another sub-freezing night across most of the southeast unless you live deep into Florida. So let's talk about this severe weather threat. Let's get a sip of water here. Let's talk about this severe weather threat. So we have an enhanced risk down here in Texas. We have a slight risk in the yellow. Enhanced risk is in the orange, and in the dark green is a marginal. If you don't know how the Outlook legend works per the Storm Prediction Center, the light green is a general risk of thunderstorms. The dark green is a marginal risk, a level 1 out of 5. Slight is a level 2 out of 5. Enhanced, which is the orange, is a level 3 out of 5. Then you go to moderate, 4 out of 5. High, which is the pink color, which is a 5 out of 5. And that is pretty rare. We don't get that often, but when we do, it's serious business like it was earlier this spring. But guys, I could see this downgrading, and I'm going to talk about why in this video. And they even mention it in the Storm Prediction Center discussion, how they think it could potentially downgrade. But I want to mention a couple areas. The enhanced risk really is just north of Houston. Okay, the Huntsville area, the Lufkin, College Station, you have an enhanced risk basically up Interstate 45 and kind of somewhat along Interstate 10 points west. And then we have a slight risk, which cuts off pretty quickly, enhanced, slight to marginal to the northern section of the severe weather risk. And then the slight risk now extends pretty much the Lake Charles region here in southwest of Louisiana, but slight risk all the way down here to, what is that? The pretty much all the way to the Victoria region. So we certainly have a severe weather threat for tomorrow. But if I had to call this anything, and guys, I don't try to downplay anything, but I don't try to overhype anything either. I would say this is a lower end enhanced risk, if that's even a thing, which it's not. But the tornado threat tomorrow, this is what the enhanced risk is basically driven off of, meaning the highest risk of this enhanced risk tomorrow is that tornado threat. There's a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location in that enhanced risk, which includes some of those towns I just mentioned, which is basically north of Houston, the College Station, all these areas right in here. I can mention a lot of other areas too, but hopefully if you're tuning in from Texas, you know your general area in your state. But the yellow is a 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. The brown is a 5% risk of the same criteria, okay? The hail and the wind threat, guys, it's not a big threat tomorrow. It really isn't. But I'm sure we will have some storms that could produce some strong winds, and we could have the potential for some hail for sure. So what's driving this severe weather threat tomorrow? Well, what you're looking at here is 500 millibar wind speed. So this is winds several thousand feet up in the air, what we call the mid to upper levels. So as we're starting off tomorrow morning, the winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere are starting to increase. We call this a mid-level jet in this case. So as you can tell, as we're getting into the afternoon hours of tomorrow, early afternoon, lunchtime to early afternoon time frame in Central Time, you have a mid-level jet that's beginning to increase. So we call this almost like the exit region of this trough right in here. So this is basically an area where you're going to have the best lift for thunderstorm development. And there is definitely no kind of cap in this case, meaning convection will be firing at will out here. In fact, it's going to be a highly convective mode, meaning you're going to have a lot of shower and storm activity, which is a reason, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, that this could downtrend because it's going to be a very messy storm mode. So plenty of lift for thunderstorm development right into here, okay? So mid-level jet causing plenty of lift in the atmosphere. You can check that off the box. Now we call this The low-level jet, so these are winds in the lower levels, so about a mile above our heads at the surface of the Earth, okay? So 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, give or take a few hundred feet, okay? So we call this the low-level jet. This is something we really look at when we're trying to gauge how severe of a wind threat this could be in a tornado threat. So in this case, okay, you're going to have a strengthening low-level jet right here over this enhanced region, right over Houston. So you're going to have a low-level jet pushing 40 to 50 knots. We call this kinematics when we're talking about winds. Kinematics, you got thermodynamics, which we're about to discuss. So with a low pressure up here, surface low up here in Oklahoma, pretty much anywhere south or southwest of this low, you're going to have a strengthening low-level jet in this case, especially if this surface low is strengthening. So you can check this off the box for the most part. Low-level jet is definitely rocking and rolling. And this also is a mechanism for a lot of lift in the atmosphere. So definitely no lack of any kind of lift or winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So that is kind of an ingredient you can check off as far as a tornado threat. Now let's talk about thermodynamics, which is your moisture levels, temperatures at the surface, and lapse rates. So lapse rates basically is the tricky one, I would say, where you gauge how quick temperatures drop off the higher you get in the atmosphere. Okay, if they drop off pretty slow, okay, they decrease very slow, the higher you get up in the atmosphere, you have poor low-level lapse rates. Okay, if they drop off pretty quick, you have good low-level lapse rates. In this case, you're not going to have great lapse rates at all, which means that there's not a lot of dry air in the atmosphere. And so in this case, you're going to have a lot of moisture in probably the low to mid levels of the atmosphere. So in this case, there's your moist sector being pulled up from this low pressure up here. You got all this moist air down here building, bubbling up into the eastern areas of Texas, even dew points climbing into the 50s into Oklahoma, Arkansas. And you got this moving moist sector. So it's definitely going to feel almost tropical down here in Houston, down to Corpus Christi tomorrow, with a lot of low-level moisture building into the region. So this is definitely an ingredient for severe weather, okay, is those higher dew points in the region. So another thing you look at, guys, is cape levels. And typically when you have higher dew points, you have higher cape levels for the most part. So cape levels in response to these dew points in the 60s and even low 70s will rise, to I almost said 10,000. Oof, that would be a bomb of energy in the atmosphere. But 1,000 to 1,500, over 1,500 joules per kilogram based off the HRRR model. Okay, but the best lift for thunderstorms is right here in this area in eastern Texas. So as we're getting into the afternoon, late afternoon, evening hours, cape begins to rise in this area. So these storms that are still firing in this section right here begin to have a lot of storm energy, which is cape pretty much for these storms to really tap into. So what's really killing this? I wouldn't say killing it, but preventing this to be a severe weather threat. Well, if you look at the soundings, guys, and I did this sounding, deep down in southeast Texas, okay, kind of about an hour or two from the border of Texas and Louisiana. This is a sounding I pulled out the area. So at the surface, you're only sitting at 68 degrees. Dew points at 67. But I want you to notice here, the dew points ride right up against the temperatures all the way until you get about into the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and then you see a lot of dry air. Okay, but in this area right here, you have a saturated column pretty high up, several thousand feet up into the air. Okay, so this tells me you got a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, which means that you don't have any cap out there, which means thunderstorms are just going to be firing at will. When all these thunderstorms are firing, they kind of congeal with one another, kind of choke each other off. Therefore, storms can't really get discrete and take advantage of all the ingredients out there, which in this case, there's going to be a lot of ingredients out there, but these storms are really just going to be kind of congealing into each other, not allowing basically for them to mature, is what I'm trying to say. And I'll show you what it looks like on the radar. You'll see exactly what I mean. But you do have a looping hodograph up here, which means there is turning with height. And you can see this. Look in the low levels. You got winds with the wind barbs coming almost directly out the south. And then you don't have to go but like a mile or two up in the atmosphere, and these winds are coming out the southwest. So there is a shift in direction with height in the lower levels, but it's just, you're going to have a lot of convection. And that is really the limiting factor with this setup, man. Sure enough, you start this tomorrow morning, and there's already a lot of shower and storm activity ongoing in eastern Texas. I mean, a lot. And, models have really kind of agree on this too, and it's been showing it over the last day. So, we're getting into the morning hours, we're getting into about lunchtime, and then this is when, the atmosphere could try to recover. And, we have to start watching west of Houston and then north of Houston for some bigger thunderstorms, especially as this begins to pull away. So you might have some clearing. Some of these storms can tap into some of this energy out here. But guys, the atmosphere is going to be really worked up from basically all this shower and storm activity. I mean, you stop it right here, guys. It's about 2 p.m. Central Time. I mean, there's no discrete looking cells. Now, this is a good and bad thing. The good news is kind of what I've already mentioned. There's so much convection, shower and storm activity, that it's not allowing for these storms to mature and for this to be a more substantial, severe weather threat. The bad news is, if some of these storms can produce a tornado, there's a good chance it'll be rain wrapped and you're not going to be able to see it, because these are just going to be some ugly storms out here. Okay, so let's just hope this doesn't materialize. But, you get into 2, 3 p.m., there's widespread storms in eastern Texas. This continues. Storms continue to fire. And you see that kidney bean look right in here in extreme eastern Texas. You don't like to see that. And, St. Augustine, Center, Texas, down to Jasper, Woodville, Hemphill. You definitely want to watch out. Carthage, maybe as far north as you guys. But I would really watch out this little section right here. Once you get too far north, you kind of drop off with the ingredients. But as we are getting into the evening, I think this begins to clear out, and the severe weather threat kind of shifts into Louisiana later tomorrow evening. And speaking of Louisiana, here's a close-up for you folks. I do apologize for clearing my throat often, guys, and having to stop and drink water. I'm definitely not 100%. So if that's, killing your vibe here, it just is what it is. But anyways, we'll keep rolling here. A lot of heavy rain begins to enter southwest Arkansas, western areas of Louisiana. And you stop it here. I mean, it's 1 p.m. Eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. I mean, these storms are just all kind of compact together. But, you got some storms here and there. They might have a little bit of a wiggle room. The best these storms are going to do is get into a semi-discrete mode, meaning they're not an all-out supercell, but they have a little bit of detachment from other areas of convection. So it does show some nasty storms around Houston early tomorrow afternoon, and we'll have to watch these little areas right into here. Okay, I would say, watch out, and definitely just in general in the coastal plains, but watch out Beaumont, up to Livingston, Jasper, that region right in here tomorrow afternoon. Okay, and then we start to get into tomorrow evening, and we need to watch these storms, especially right after they kind of move over the Texas-Louisiana line. I think that could be when they're their worst for Louisiana. But, we'll have to watch these even as they move into central Louisiana, Alexandria, Monroe, down to Lake Charles. These could still be having the risk for some tornadoes in this region. So we'll certainly watch out for this area. So I think the tilt is on. I think we'll wake up Friday morning, and these storms will still be ongoing, but I think they'll lose their intensity with, of course, just an unfavorable time of the day. But speaking on the updraft velocity swath, which basically is the HRRR model trying to indicate where there's rotation with some of these storms, and this is just the latest long-range model run. It indicates in these highlighted colored regions where it likes where these storms will rotate the best. Now, as I mentioned many times, this doesn't mean that there's a super high chance for a tornado to drop. It's just one model run. But in general, it does like, this cluster of storms that develops early tomorrow afternoon around Houston. And then, even as we're getting into well after the sunsets tomorrow in Louisiana, it does like this area of southern Louisiana, southwest Louisiana, and even a little bit further north along the border of Texas and Louisiana. So we'll watch this region for sure. But we'll do this again tomorrow as far as an update on the severe weather. But a lot of rain is expected from these just multiple rounds of downpours in this region. If you live in eastern Texas, 1 to 2, maybe as much as 3 inches of rain between now and Friday evening. Southern Louisiana, you get for 2 to 4 inches of rain. Certainly less if you live in southeast Louisiana. But if you make your way west into and then up into the northern section of Louisiana, about 1 to 2. But you get south, 2 to 4. And basically the Texarkana region, anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain is possible. And even a good bit of rain up here into the Mississippi Valley. So we will certainly monitor this and continue to keep you guys updated as we are getting into tomorrow morning. So as we look at the Pacific Northwest, as we're getting into tomorrow morning, I think a lot of moisture will be on radar. And then as we're getting into later in the morning, you'll start to get rounds of moisture that makes its way through. I think you're going to get multiple rounds throughout the day and night tomorrow night and then into Friday. But here comes the first round. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain showers, some gusty winds probably. And then we get into tomorrow night. The snow overspreads Idaho. Snow levels drop. We got snow down here into northern Nevada, even snow down here in Colorado. Snow falling in all of western and northern Idaho, snow falling in western Montana, eastern areas of Washington. We continue, and then we have another big area of moisture that makes its way in Friday morning. This could be heavier, okay? And this is when it really starts to rip up here in the Cascades. And this same energy will do the exact same thing the first area of energy does. As we're getting, it's like deja vu from Thursday to Friday. You basically got the same kind of setup, except I would argue that Friday's kind of push of moisture is heavier, more substantial. But you get all the way to Friday about late morning, midday Pacific time out here. And, it's snowing pretty good in Idaho. That's why you got winter storm watches up for Idaho. So blend of all models. This is between now and the entire weekend. So all the way through Sunday evening, guys, holy cow, feet of snow in the Cascades. Look at this, 62 inches of snow. So this isn't totally super uncommon. Just, it's just the time of the year where snow levels are lower and you start to get that massive snowpack up here in the Pacific Northwest. But, even in these other mountain ranges in these regions, you're going to get a lot of heavy snow. And just looking at the Rockies in general, guys, heavy snow expected. You're going to get some snow in the valley regions too. I heard somebody commented and said that southern Idaho got a lot of snow from the last system that moved through, and it looks like we got a lot of snow coming in. And the snow's going to add up in the Rockies too in Colorado. So this is going to be a big system that really affects all of the Rockies and really packs down that snowpack for these areas. That's for sure. So I wish I knew, thinking about it, I wish I knew all these areas out here so I could mention, maybe one day, maybe 10 years from now, I'll be able to mention all the isolated mountain ranges out here and not just label them the Cascades and the Sierra Nevada and the Rockies. But until then, there goes my voice. Until then, we're just going to have to rock and roll what we know. But as this first system pulls out, will kind of rocks its way through the U.S. For Friday, I think the low pressure will eject and kind of weaken as it gets into the Ohio Valley and the Midwest and will lose its moisture. But another area of energy will begin to develop out the Gulf of Mexico. And as we're getting into Friday night and Saturday morning, a lot of moisture could be heavy rain overspreads Louisiana throughout all the deep South states, all the way into the Carolinas. And then I think this really gets choked out before it gets into the mid-Atlantic. But man, this is going to bring washout conditions for a lot of folks this Saturday and Friday and Saturday. It's going to dump a lot of rain. We'll have to watch the trends of this system. But this is our weekend system. And then, another push of moisture could reload for our Sunday. And yeah, just the entire weekend looks rather miserable if you got any outdoor activities. And speaking of up here on the northern side of this system, you very well could get a stripe of winter weather. Somewhere in Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, central Michigan, and maybe another area of winter weather could develop on the backside, this upper low. This is a kind of a tricky corridor up here, okay, as we're getting into Friday and Saturday, but we'll certainly watch it for you folks. But as far as rain in the southeast, this is rain for the first system with severe weather threat. This is rain with the second system. Okay, this goes all the way till Monday morning. Washout, right? I mean, it's a lot of rain coming for southern Mississippi, pretty much all of Alabama. You know, it doesn't look like Tennessee or Kentucky is going to get a whole lot from this. You guys get kind of split between both systems, but Georgia and South Carolina. And then it dramatically cuts off in North Carolina, okay? And unfortunately, guys, for you folks that need rain in Florida, like the Tampa Bay area, this system just might hoodoo you, unfortunately. So we'll see if this trends north or south. But as far as on the northern edge of this, the blend of all models does show a stripe of snow. It's very light, but it's there. It shows up. So you always got to watch the northern end of these systems. Okay, sometimes they'll dump more snow. So we'll kind of watch Friday and the Saturday morning in this little area right in here for sure, for something interesting to happen, but not a whole lot to speak on right now. So there's the potential for a system next week. So there's going to be a lot of energy flying around after pretty much between now and the next several days. Okay, but there's going to be a lot of energy right in the middle of the country as we're getting into Sunday. We got a lot of southern stream energy right down here. We got energy right in here, pieces of energy digging down. The Euro wants to take, and I know this is everywhere, guys. Trust me, it looks everywhere to me too. But this is energy down here. This is energy down here. This is energy up here. Nothing's really consolidated. But what happens on the Euro is this tries to consolidate as we get into early next week. And then this tries to get a tilt on, and then we could get a bigger storm system. When this energy kind of consolidates, sometimes it can drag down more cold air. And typically when you see these more vibrant colors at the surface, you probably have precipitation. So this is a lot of energy over the Northeast sometime next week. So what does it look like on the surface? Well, you know, we get through the weekend. All right, you don't see much as we're getting into Sunday. But then all of a sudden, there it is. It tries to sneak by you. There's some energy just in the form of some light rain and light snow. And then we still consistently have a lot of southern stream energy. These kind of link up right in here. All right, and then you get a developing low pressure, enough cold air getting dragged down behind this trough with a cold front. And then check this out. Monday morning, December 4th, you have a developing winter weather event. We'll go on and just get a little bit closer to this. And here it is, the latest Euro, for you snow fans up here, wants to drop a winter storm, not just for the interior sections of the Northeast, but for areas of like southern New England too, more so Connecticut, Rhode Island. It gives accumulating snow to Boston as we're getting into early next week, and then this pulls out. Now, the European doesn't show a blockbuster storm, guys, but it does show accumulating snow. Latest GFS, much warmer, okay? Brings this cold air really doesn't connect with this. There's not really a connection that allows for basically enough cold air to drag into this, and it's just a warmer storm, okay? And this is just a cold rain with backside cold air and lake effect snow on the back end, okay? So the GFS and the Euro do not agree. What does the European ensemble show? Well, it shows a pretty good signal for something as we go between now and 8 days from now, okay? Solid signal for accumulating snow coming up sometime in the next week. Okay, but if you look at the GFS ensemble, it's definitely a weaker signal for you folks in the southern areas. Okay, so we gotta fine tune this for sure. What's gonna happen? We need to figure it out. There's a lot of energy flying around. Moving past this, guys, you know, we're looking at the 5th through the 9th time frame, 6 to 10 day temperature outlook of December. Above average temperatures are going to dominate most of the country. This quick digging trough associated with the system we just spoke on could bring some below average temperatures or around near normal temperatures for the eastern U.S., but this will be a fleeting pattern. Guys, really what I'm watching for us winter weather fans, looks like I'm out of water. Thankfully, the video is almost over. For us winter weather fans, there's something called a sudden. It's basically the polar vortex gets dislodged. Okay, which means the polar vortex weakens. When you have a strong polar vortex, that means all the cold air is locked up into the Arctic. When you have a weak polar vortex, that means cold air gets dislodged somewhere. Does it get dislodged into Russia, North America? Where? It's always tough to forecast. Well, there's signs that that's going to happen here in the next week or so. It's always a 2 to 3, 4 week lag before the effects actually move in. So the European weeklies, which I showed on my social media earlier today, really, really likes a period from, I would say, mid to late December into January. Okay, the blue is troughing. The warmer colors, yellows and orange, is ridging. All right, so blue indicates lower pressure, warmer colors, higher pressure. Low pressure, storms. So as you can tell, shows kind of ridging over the eastern U.S. as we're about around mid-month, December 19th. This isn't a forecast, okay? But look as we're getting to around Christmas time. It's December 25th, Christmas, and we have a signal for troughing in the southern and eastern U.S., which tells me the potential for cold and storminess. Storminess could be a winter storm. It could be rain. You know, we just don't know that kind of information. Below average temperatures. And this continues, guys. This lasts throughout the rest of late December into early January. So I'm really watching late December, guys. I really am. We'll fine-tune that as we get closer. We're still way off from that. But yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for struggling with that video with me. That was definitely a struggle. But hopefully I'll feel even better tomorrow morning. God bless all y'all. Have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon.